What GMAT practice tests you can use to improve your score? There are plenty of different opportunities how you can do it. I will tell you today about the most effective ways to improve your score with a GMAT practice test. If you have done any amount of GMAT preparation, you have likely heard that taking full-length practice tests is a critical part of your preparation. This is sage advice. Students who take the GMAT cold without ever having taken GMAT practice test ahead of time can find GMAT experience difficult. I personally took it 4 times and I remember my first time it wasn't easy at all. If you follow the advice provided in this video, you will 99% will be ready for the test. In the middle point of your preparation, you should have about months before your scheduled GMAT date. Thus, you should take one full-length practice GMAT every 5 days or so. But the flip side is that when students prepare properly, including taking a sufficient number of GMAT practice tests before the real GMAT, top GMAT scores are within reach. That being said, you want to be smart about when and how you use GMAT practice tests in your preparation strategy. In this video, I'll show you how and when to use practice tests to help you reach this goal. Let's begin by discussing the importance of taking a practice GMAT at the onset of your GMAT prep. Step 1. Start your prep with a full-length practice GMAT at the beginning of your GMAT studies. You should take an initial GMAT practice exam. A great place to find full-length test could be public resources like MBA.com and some other. The full-length GMAT practice test found at the MBA.com are created and offered by GMAT, the GMAT creators. GMAT exams use the same scoring algorithms that actually GMAT uses and feature retired GMAT questions, making them a great resource for GMAT preparation. Some students feel that they should do some rigorous prep prior to taking a practice test, but remember, the objective of the initial test just to understand where you are on your journey to your final GMAT score. There's only minimal preparation necessary before you take your first practice test. To get the most accurate sense of where you stand using your first practice test, beforehand familiarize yourself with the sections of the test and the types of questions you will see. In doing so, you will ready yourself to detect the questions you encounter on the first practice test, as you will not have to figure out even what the questions asking. Step 2. How to take a full-length GMAT practice test. It's important when you take your first practice GMAT, you replicate test day conditions. In other words, you should take the test in its entirely in a quiet environment, completing all recommendations and rules that you read. And you could probably get away with skipping the essay, but definitely take the integrated reasoning, quantitative section, the verbal section. If possible, use a dry erase pad and a marker like those provided at GMAT test centers to do your scratch work. You can order this on Amazon and any other website. Also, if you like most students preparing for the GMAT, you are probably working full-time and it wouldn't be a great idea to come home after a working day all day and sit down to take GMAT practice test. Instead, try to take it on a Saturday or Sunday morning when you are fresher. This is my advice, and that's what I did many times, and to be honest, it worked. The baseline score that you achieve on your first practice test will tell you how far you are from target GMAT score, thus helping you to determine the length and intensity of GMAT preparation necessary to reach your specific goal. Remember, the practice test will not be an accurate gauge on your current GMAT skills unless you adhere closely to actual GMAT testing conditions when taking it. If you follow yourself to pause repeatedly, go over the allotted time for a section, or use a calculator during the quant section. By the way, calculator will not be available on the real GMAT. Your score will not be accurate and your result will not be optimal for devising an effective study strategy. Step 3. Analyzing the result of your GMAT, of your initial practice GMAT practice test and using other tests. Let's discuss how to effectively analyze the results of your initial GMAT practice test and how you can improve your readiness. Okay, so took your first practice GMAT. You are off to a good start. Your goal now is to do a high-level analysis of where you stand. For example, you are on 50 points from your target GMAT score. It's a very valuable and good portion of information. The score gap will give you a sense of how much time and energy you likely need to invest to reach your goal. Although you carefully review all of your questions you answered on a future practice test, now is not the time to review each question. It's difficult to draw useful conclusions about specific areas of strengths and weaknesses from the results of one practice test. Just believe me, I did it 4 times and I prepared about 1,000 students by my company. Instead, lay out your comprehensive study strategy. Some students need as many as 300 plus hours to prepare for the GMAT. However, your preparation time will depend on how far your baseline score is from your score goal, your learning style and other daily commitments, how many children you have, for example, and so on. A person with a full-time job may have to spread his or her study over a greater number of weeks than will someone who had those hours free to devote to GMAT prep. I highly recommend to take vacation and spend all your time for this. This is my personal advice. Similarly, someone who is 50 points from his or her score goal likely will need far less time to prepare than someone striving for a 200-point increase. In determining how much time you should set aside for GMAT prep, you may find it useful to check out this video several times and maybe find and build a kind of GMAT study prep that will work for you. Remember, every person is different and you shouldn't assume that you can follow someone else's study plan and achieve that person's score. I personally recommend several other resources that help me a lot. For example, GoGMAT.com is a good source of questions to test your GMAT skills. This is a software with about 2,000 plus questions in its database. It works for me and I hope it will work for you. Step 4. Master the material before you take more GMAT practice tests. Let's discuss the importance of mastering the material prior to taking more practice tests. After your initial diagnostic exam, it will be more time to get to work on the target study and focus on a practice that is fundamental to GMAT success. At this point, your job is to master the material that appears on the GMAT. Forget about taking additional practice tests until your GMAT prep is nearly complete. Taking further practice tests before you master the material is a poor use of your time and, by the way, tests. For example, if you have not mastered functions, sequences, probability, and geometry, you can predict without spending 4 hours on a full-length practice GMAT that you probably will not farewell answering questions involving those concepts. Instead of using precise practice exams when they aren't of the greatest use to you, spend your time training and mastering concepts. Continuing to take practice exams without having mastered answering the many types of questions that appear in a study book is not a very good idea. Just believe me and don't do these mistakes. Step 5. Begin taking weekly practice tests near the end of your GMAT prep. As you approach the end of your GMAT prep, that is, once you have sufficiently mastered the content, strategies, techniques, tips, and tricks necessary to earn a high GMAT score, and after you have completed numerous practice questions to round out your study of each topic, a sound strategy is to begin taking weekly full-length practice GMAT test. I can't overemphasize the importance of taking each of the remaining practice tests under the most realistic conditions possible. Doing so will give you a level of familiarity and comfort that will take some of the pressure off when the time comes to take your actual GMAT. Of course, you can't take your practice exams at the test center, but taking the test according to GMAT rules in a quiet location away from home can go a long way toward building the familiarity you may need. Use full-length practice tests to assess your GMAT readiness. Many students set an arbitrary GMAT test day and sit for the test whether they are properly prepared or not. It has never made complete sense to me why anyone would do this. The GMAT is nearly impossible to trick. If you're not ready, your score will reflect your lack of readiness. So why spend your money and time taking the GMAT before you have evidence that you are prepared enough to earn a good score? You want to walk into the test center confident and prepared, not nervous and wishing you had studied for another month. Additionally, as some people discover too late, you can take the GMAT only 5 times in a 12-month period and 8 times in a total. So by taking the test multiple times just to see how you do, you could use up your opportunities to hit your score goal. A much better strategy is to sit for the GMAT once you have sufficient evidence that you are ready to earn a good score. How you can get this evidence? It's a good question, and I will help you to find the answer. You can use a lot of different resources. You can use GoGMAT.com practice test. You can use MBA.com. Any other that will give you a very clear score that will help you to answer the question: are you ready or not? For example, let's say that your goal on the GMAT is 730 or higher because you are applying to Magic 7 schools. Let's assume that your last 3 GMAT practice test score were 670, 680 or 690. If your GMAT is a week away, you must be honest with yourself about what result you will get on the real test. After all, the average of these 3 practice GMAT scores is a 680. Why would you expect to go up approximately 50 points on the real test? So, if your GMAT is scheduled but you are not quite feeling ready to hit your GMAT score, you have some options. First, you can reschedule your GMAT for a later date when you will be better prepared. Second, you can take the GMAT as a schedule and see how you do. Listen, you may just hit your target score, and even if you don't, you can consider canceling your score and retaking the test at a later date. Keep in mind that a good percentage of GMAT test takers must sit for the exams more than once, and although you want to limit the number of times you take the GMAT, sitting for it is a good practice. You may find my video helpful, and if you think so, just do what I said and you will get better results on the real test. Thank you for watching my video, and at the end I would like to say that it's natural to feel nervous in the days leading up to your exam, but the rest assured that you will have done prep necessary to tackle your GMAT with confidence. Thank you for watching. Consider to subscribe, put any comments you may have, and my question is, when will you be ready for your GMAT test? Please put it in comments and stay with me.